Today is March the 7th. My name is Anthony Villanueva. I am interviewing Karlyn Martinez for the Latino Oral History Project, Voces of a Pandemic Project at the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies at Northern Illinois University. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas, Austin. Please know, Ms. Martinez, that this interview will be placed in the Northern Illinois University libraries and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there's anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record your consent for recording this. Do you give the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Northern Illinois University libraries?
Yes, I do.
Do you grant Northern Illinois University libraries title interest, the copyrights over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree to allow Northern Illinois University libraries to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I do.
Do you grant the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and your materials with the Voces of Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for the inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
Do you wish to have us share the rest of your interview with your public file at the Benson Research Center?
Sure. Yes, I agree.
On occasion, the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We will only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email address with journalists?
Sure. Yes.
That concludes the part of this little questionnaire. I'm going to call you Karlyn. Is that all right?
Yep, that's fine.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background in the healthcare profession?
I have been a nurse since 2011. I started off as a med-surg nurse, and then I switched over and I worked in NICU for about 3 years. Then when I moved to California, I switched everything around and I've been working in an outpatient primary care clinic with the military since 2014.
Okay. And can you tell me, when did you learn about COVID? When did COVID first come on the scene for you?
So I was actually following it in the fall, winter. I think it was like around November when it first started in Wuhan. I was actually following it, and I used to track the different countries. And as it was getting closer to us, I would tell my coworkers, hey, they have a new case here, they have a new case there. So I've been following it since like the beginning.
Any particular reason why you decided to follow it?
So I spent a lot of time on the internet, and I saw that they, just how it was spreading, and I was just interested to see, how far it would actually go. At one point I never thought that it would actually come to the United States. So I was just keeping track of it, something to for my coworkers and I to keep an eye on and be interested in.
Did you come to any hypothesis as to how and why it got to the mainland here in the United States?
Well, the big problem is was travel. Everybody was going and crisscrossing from different places. You can't really ban flights for one place because people, what they'll do is just take a connecting flight to another place. And the travel, I think it's what helped pass it along everywhere. And then you're on an airplane with, circulated air, and it's airborne. So, there was no stopping it.
Okay. And how did you personally learn about COVID yourself?
Well, like I said, I was, from the internet reading it, following, and then
My question, I should have rephrased that. Did your job, that your any people in your job come out with any kind of statement saying, "Hey, there's COVID it's on its way here"?
Yes, it was more after the fact, after when things started shutting down, they gave us instructions and we kind of partially shut down. Like we stopped seeing patients in person and we switched over to virtual, which was kind of hard because some patients for certain things, you have to be seen in person. You can't do it over the phone. So that was an issue. And then we started implementing different as we slowly opened up to separate the COVID possible patients from the healthy patients. And that was like in March of 2020.
Okay. March of 2020. Okay. And at work, how big of a facility is it where you work? Is it like 20 patients? Is it just walk-in?
Oh, no. Let's see. Well, for my team alone, we have the active duty. So in Point Loma, so we have about 6,000 patients just on our team so from the active duty. Plus, we also see any active duty that is traveling and in between, and like let's say they get sick or need to be seen, we see them as well. So we're very, very busy.
So it's a big facility.
Yes.
Okay. And how many other nurses, more or less, you don't have to give me an exact number, how big is the nurse staff there at that facility?
There's only 4 of us.
And
yeah.
Four for all those patients?
Yeah, I'm supposed to have another nurse with me, but I do everything by myself because we don't have enough nurses. And then because we're divided into 3 teams, and one team has 2 nurses, and then the other team she's by herself also because we don't have nurses.
Okay. And what precautions did you start taking at the facility?
So they set up a screening table where they were checking everyone's temperature and asking, have you been exposed to someone with COVID, any symptoms? And then, like I said, we divided the clinic for like when patients were coming for possible COVID, we have them park in a different parking lot and they entered the building through a separate entrance. Okay. So that way they wouldn't intermingle with the rest of the clinic.
Okay. And while you were there, did you come in contact with any COVID patients?
Oh, yes. I've been I quarantined 3 different times, 3 or 4 different times.
You were possibly exposed to COVID at least 3 times in the last year.
Yes.
Okay. And at what point did you realize that this was a serious situation?
I think when everything shut down, I was like, oh, wow, because I never thought that, we'll be closing down, stores and restaurants and because of the big hit on the economy. And so when that started happening, I was like, wow, this is going to be something serious. And especially the schools shut down. That was another big thing.
Okay. Did the school shutting down, did that affect your son?
Yes, he had to switch to all virtual.
And how did that switch impact your employment?
Actually, I was lucky enough that it didn't affect me in regards to work. So
do you work a day shift?
Yeah. But my son's old enough that he would take he'd take care of himself.
He handled the virtual learning on his own.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
He's a little man.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And how did the COVID impact you outside of work, your personal life?
It got, being locked down and having nowhere to go, it did bring on some bouts of depression and kind of like feeling like you're trapped because, there was nowhere to go, nothing to do. And personally, my family back east, when everything blew up in New York, New Jersey, Patterson is right from 15 minutes from New York.
Right.
So in total, I lost 3 family members to COVID. So, that was kind of hard. And then we can't travel to go, there's no funerals. So it's kind of hard, you got to say goodbye without really saying goodbye.
And tell me about your 3 family members. Can you go through each one individually as to how they were related to you?
Yes. So the first one was my uncle. He was married to my dad's sister. Now,
How old was he?
Oh, he was in his 80s, and he was he had a lot of health issues, like several heart attacks in his past. Was in a wheelchair. So when it happened, it kind of was like, okay, well, he was a and then the second person was my grandmother's sister. She was 90, but she was one of those feisty 90-year-olds. She was 100% cognitive. She did everything herself, and she was healthy. What happened was her daughter picked her up and took her to a birthday party in New York, and she picked it up from the birthday party, and she passed away. And at the same time that happened, her son, my cousin, was in Jacksonville in a coma with COVID. So she died.
How old was your cousin?
He's in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So she died first, and then he died maybe 2 days later.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
And how did those deaths affect your extended family?
Oh, it caused a lot of issues, a lot of depression, especially the one with my grandma's sister, my aunt, because she was healthy, and she was kind of like the backbone of her siblings, and she's the oldest, but she's the strongest, and so that caused a lot of issues. And when someone passed, a lot of fighting about money and property and all that. So there's some family drama going on because of that.
Family drama. Okay.
Yeah.
And did they pass away in the hospital facility, or did they pass away at home?
Oh, they all passed away in the hospital.
Okay. And from what you know, were they adequately treated at the hospital?
Yes. They were there for a few weeks before they passed.
Oh, okay. What changes have you made with your family in your home in light of the COVID pandemic?
Honestly, I personally really haven't made that many changes. The one big change I can say is I avoid going into grocery stores. I do mostly everything online. But for me, it's not like for fear of COVID. It's more like it's annoying with dealing with the long lines and all the people and stuff. So I have switched mostly to everything online shopping.
Okay. And how about the PPE situation? Do you have PPE at home?
No, I don't. I just have like a Ziploc bag with some masks for when I head out. But
at work, do you have enough PPE at the Naval Hospital?
No, I can say that we definitely would we need more. Because we have to provide our own mask because they don't give us any mask. And
excuse me. You work in a military health facility,
mm-hmm.
and they don't give you any masks. You have to bring your own.
They were at one point they were rationing them, and we got a brown bag with you got 5 masks, and then you were supposed to save your old mask and trade them in. I think it was once at the end of the week to get new masks, but they stopped doing that. And basically you're basically to bring your own because they don't have any.
Okay. how has COVID affected your son? Has he manifested any signs of being concerned about the COVID?
Oh yeah, yes, he was, and he likes to watch the news a lot, so he got worked up, and then it affected him with being so isolated at home, no friends, to hang out. I think he was getting a little depressed, so I actually sent him to the East Coast. Right now, he's staying with his dad because his dad's working from home, so at least he has his dad to be with him during the day.
Okay. Do you see any challenges? Has COVID imposed any challenges on you on your educational pursuits?
Right now, no, but if things don't change in the next 7 to 8 months, it might cause issues because that's when I start my clinical part of my studies. And a lot of students are reporting that they're having difficulty finding preceptors because a lot of facilities are closed to students. So if things don't change, then yes, I'm going to have some difficulty finding preceptors for my clinicals.
Okay. Do you think that the situation with COVID is going to improve or stay the same?
I think it's going to improve. It's just not going to go as fast as people want it to. But I can say that I've seen some changes. For example, I saw in the news that they're going to start opening like Disneyland and some amusement parks, just with restrictions and limited numbers. And I think they were saying for sports, they were going to start having some fans come to the games. So I think it's going to improve, and especially because of people getting the vaccine and feeling safe, that I think eventually we'll get to a new normal, but it's just going to take time.
Did you get the vaccine?
No, absolutely not.
No, because you don't want it, or no, because it's not available?
No, I don't want it.
Okay. You want to tell me why?
For myself, it's just not enough research, and like for example, if I want to have another child, I don't know how this is going to affect it, and I'd rather have my vaccine go to someone else that needs it more.
Okay. What's your opinion on how this COVID pandemic has been handled by, let's say, the state of California?
Oh, I think it's been okay. However, I think they're trying too hard in regards to, when we're compared to other states, we're like super restricted. Our hair salons are still closed, no indoor dining, versus when you compare to Texas, they don't even have a mask mandate anymore, and they're open everything 100%. So, which again is going to cause issues, because I feel that we should all be following the same plan, because if one state's doing one thing, the other state's doing another thing, and people travel back and forth, they were never going to get ahead of it.
Okay.
But they've been okay, just I think a little too restricted.
Okay. And what about on the national level? What's your opinion on the way the previous administration handled the pandemic?
Garbage. Absolutely.
Okay. I want you to tell me how you really feel.
It was horrendous. I was actually watching every day the coronavirus task force briefings, and it was like watching a comedy show, because it made absolutely no sense. And I wanted to watch it live so people don't say, oh, they edited it, or, when, he said about injecting it into the skin, and, it was just handled so poorly. And the fact that, again, there was no federal strategy. It was basically everyone do their own thing. And you know, as we're the United States, I feel like there should have been a federal strategy and we should have all been helping each other. It turned into basically a battle between the states of who can get the PPE, who can do this, and it was a mess.
Okay. Do you think that the president administration is trying to turn things around?
Yes, you know, but sometimes when things are something is so broken and it's done so poorly, it's kind of hard to fix.
Okay.
And I feel like the damage is already done. You know, the
Okay.
economy, it's going to take a long time and a lot of working together to try to make changes to get us back on track.
Okay. Okay, Karlyn, is there anything else you want to share with me before we end this interview?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this. And this, as I told you before, this will be available in the future on YouTube, so that in years down the road, when your son tells his kids that, hey, I read in history books something about COVID back in 2020, he can go to YouTube and say, hey, this is my mom. This is what she had to say about it.
Oh, I
Okay?
can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to see
Okay,
it.
so I'm going to stop this now.